In this session, we will discuss about the data visualization techniques which can use for the numerical data. When we are going to represent the numerical data using the charts, graphs, or tables, then we can use the following techniques. Therefore, here we will discuss about the tabulating and the graphing techniques for the numerical data. When we are discussing about the data, we have learned that we can divide this data into two parts. We can say this data can be categorized as two parts. First, we have set them as the categorical data, and the next way is the numerical data. Therefore, in the previous session, we have discussed about the techniques that we can use for the data visualization for the categorical data. And this session, we will discuss it for the numerical data. When we are going to discuss about the numerical data, this numerical data can be again classified as two classifications. The first way is the ordered array of numbers, and then the frequency distributions or the cumulative distributions. If we are having an ordered array, in the sense we are just having the numbers, we are having the numbers in the ascending order or descending order. In generally, we are having the numbers in this form. Here, if you are collecting the data, suppose that you are collecting the weights of the students, it can be taken as an ordered array. A simple example, if you are having a small set of numbers, I'll take for it for 5 students, then we are having the values as 52, 50, 65, 60, and 59. This is a set of numbers we have obtained or set of data points we have obtained, and this can be considered as the numerical data. Now what we can do is we can rearrange them in an ordered manner. It means that we can have it in the descending order or the ascending order. Here I will consider about the ascending order of the values. If I consider the ascending order, smallest element is 50. Thereafter, we'll get 52, 59, 60, and 65. Therefore, this can be considered as an ordered array of numbers. And if you need, you can arrange it as the descending order as well. If you are rearranging this, the initial one in the descending order, it means that the largest number comes first, then 65, 60, 59, 52, and 50. Therefore, this can be also considered as an ordered array of numbers. It can be have it in the ascending order or descending order. Therefore, for the data representation of the ordered array of numbers, we can use the technique called the stem and leaf plot. Therefore, in the latter part of the session or the with the next few minutes, we will start the a discussion of the stem and leaf plot, and thereafter we'll move for the frequency distributions and the cumulative distributions. Apart from this ordered array of numbers, then the next classification that we can have for numerical data is the frequency distributions. It means that in simplify explain about frequency distributions, we will have some observations as x, and this x value has repeated for several number of times, and we are saying it as the f, or we are saying it as the frequency. It is simply, if we are considering about a large set of data, it is 3 to 60, 61, 61, 61, 62. In here, rather than taking it as an ordered array of numbers, we can consider it as frequency distribution. It is because the same number has repeated for several number of times. Therefore, if I let x equals 60, then I can see that 60 has appeared for 3 times. Therefore, the frequency of 60 is 3, and the frequency of 61 is 4, and the frequency of 62 is 1. Likewise, we can construct the frequency distribution. Therefore, if a number has, or if a similar or same data point has repeated for several number of time, or the magnitude of the observation we are having same number of times, then we can construct the frequency distribution. Based on the frequency distribution, we can construct the cumulative distributions as well. To represent these frequency distributions and the cumulative distributions, we can use the following techniques. Therefore, here we can use the tabulated method, or you can use the tables, then the tabular forms, then we can construct the histograms for the frequency distributions, and we can construct the polygons. Rather than saying the polygons, we tend to say this as the frequency polygons. These are the frequency polygons. And then we can construct the ogive curves for these frequency distributions. Here we are saying this as the ogive curves for frequency distribution. Therefore, these are the techniques that we can use for the data visualization techniques for the frequency distribution or the cumulative distributions. Okay, now we will first discuss about the data visualization technique for ordered array of numbers. Here we can say that we can use the stem and leaf plot for the data representation of ordered array of numbers. Therefore, if you look about the stem and leaf plot, we can say that a stem and leaf plot is a special table where each data value is split into stem and a leaf. And we can use the following steps to construct the stem and leaf plot. Actually, if we are having a number, suppose that we are having just, I'll take the 2-digit numbers first. Okay, I will say it as, I will have the set of numbers. It is 1, 2. Okay, rather than saying yes, 1, 2. If I suppose I will take the numbers, I will take numbers 1. It is, I have written it as 0, 1. Then I will take another number as 15 and take another number as 35. Each of these number can be divided into two parts. What we are saying is the stem and the leaf. First, it would be much more appropriate to identify the leaf. Then we can simply identify uh, the 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 quantity which falls under stem. Generally, we are saying that the leaf is said to be the last digit of the or the last digit of the number that we can see, and once you remove the last digit, then the remaining part will falls under the stem of this stem and leaf plot. Therefore, if you are considering this 0, 1, 1 can be considered as the leaf here, and stem would be value 0. If you are considering this 15, the last digits falls under the leaf, and the first digit falls under the stem. Here we'll say that 5 falls under the leaf, and here we'll say it as the stem falls under the this 3 falls under the stem. And if you are considering it for 3-digit number, suppose that you are having 125, here also we can consider that usually we are taking the last digit as the leaf, and then we can say this 1 to combine it is 12. We can it say as the stem of this stem and leaf plot. Therefore, this is the way that we are simply identifying the stem and leaf. When you are constructing the stem and leaf plot, this is the way of identifying the stem and leaf. Therefore, here I have mentioned the steps that we can use to construct the stem and leaf plot. First, what we have to do is we have to rearrange the data in the ordered array as the smallest to largest. Always we are using this technique, ascending order. It is because this will be make this construction of stem and leaf plot easily, and also it would be easy for the interpretation as well. Therefore, first what we have to do is we have to rearrange the data in the ascending order of their values, and thereafter we have to divide, or we have to separate each number into two parts, what we have previously discussed as the leaf and the stem. Generally, we are saying this leaf as the usually it is the last digit, and all these what we can say it as what we can say the remaining elements or the remaining digits are falls under the stem. And then what we have to do thereafter is we have to arrange these values in a table having two columns. Here we are, once you construct the stem and leaf plot, you will get the stem in here and the leaf in the last column of this table. Therefore, using the stem and leaf plot, we can simply have an idea regarding the distribution of the data set as well. In some later sessions, I will discuss when I'm discussing about the shapes of the distribution. Again, we will come back to identification of shapes based on the stem and leaf plot as well. Okay, now we will move for an example related to the stem and leaf plot. Here you are asked to collect the data regarding the number of hours that students attend to the online classes. Therefore, here we can see that the number of hours that they have spent. Here we have the data points as 24, 26, 20, again 24, 21, 27, likewise 41, 32 and 38. Here, this is the raw data that you have collected. This is said to be the raw data that you have collected. It is because you have not prepared this data. This is the first-hand data that you have collected. When you are asked to construct the stem and leaf plot, first what you have to do is you have to rearrange this data in the ascending order. Therefore, we'll select the smallest number first and we are rearranging the data. And for the as the last value, you will get the highest value of this data set. Okay, now you can see that to construct this stem and leaf plot, here the data is arranged in the ascending order starting from 21 with ending up with 41. It is because they are the smallest and the largest values respectively. And thereafter what we have to do is we have to consider the last digit of the each term as the leaf, and all the remainings are as the stem. Therefore, here if you consider about this 21, this 2 falls under the stem, and here we can say the 1 as the leaf. Therefore, it would be much more easier if you first identify the leaf, and thereafter we can say that the balance or the remaining portion of this number falls under the stem. Therefore, here the constructed table is given below. Here, when we are constructing the stem and leaf, now you can see that for the values of 20, so we can have the values as 21, 24, again 24, 26, 27, and 27. All these numbers are having the same stem as 2, and they are having the several leaves. Therefore, even though we have repeated the same number, we have to include all the leaves in the stem and leaf plot. And here we can see that there is a common stem for all these numbers. That is why we are arranging them or writing them in the same row. It is because for the same stem we are having the several leaves as here 1, 4, 4, 6, 7, and 7. Here you will get 1, here it is 4. You will get as the leaf 1, leaf is 4, 4 here, 6 here, 7 here, another 7 here, and you know that the stem is 2. This is how you are constructing the first row. And if you identify the second row, it is for the 30s. Now values are 30, 32, and 38. Therefore, if you identify the leaves, then it is 0, 2, and 8. Therefore, we'll get this as the stem as 3. It is common for all. That is why we can write down all these values in this order. And similarly, we can do it for the values assigned for the 40s. Then the constructed stem and leaf plot is this. Therefore, we can see that all the values are included. And if you see about this value, if you have this value 8, it suggests that value is 38. It is because there is a stem here, stem is 3 and leaf is 8. That is how this 38 is constructed. Therefore, this is the way that we are used to construct the stem and leaf plot and reading the leaf stem and leaf plot as well. And we can use the system and leaf plot for the making easier for the data presentation and to have an idea regarding the distribution of data. Therefore, in the latter sessions, I will discuss when I'm discussing about the distributions, so the shapes of the distribution, then we can see that we can identify whether the data set is skewed to either left hand side or right hand side simply using this stem and leaf plot. Therefore, this will be an added advantage of using the stem and leaf plot for the data presentation. And now we will move for the frequency distributions. Now we have discussed the stem and leaf plot for the ordered array of numbers, but this is not the only method we can use. There are several methods, but in this session I will take the stem and leaf plot for the discussion as a method for um, data visualization technique for ordered array of numbers. And now we will move for the data visualization techniques for the frequency distributions and the cumulative distributions. When we are going to discuss about the frequency distributions, basically we can divide these frequency distributions. We can have the frequency distributions. When we are having the frequency distributions, we can again divide this into two categories. First one is the ungrouped data distributions or the frequency distributions, and then the grouped data distributions or the frequency distributions. Therefore, these are the two categories or the two ways that we are having the frequency distributions. Therefore, first we will discuss about this ungrouped data distribution, and thereafter we will discuss about the group how to construct this group data distribution or the group frequency distributions. When we are discussing about the ungrouped data distribution, actually this ungrouped data distribution is a table. Actually, where in the ungrouped data distribution, we are showing the data in the tabular form, and this shows the each value of the variable, together with the number of time it occurs. The number of time, this suggests the frequency, this suggests the frequency of the value that we can take for the variable. Therefore, under the ungrouped data distribution, first we will consider an example related with this. But what we have to keep in mind is this ungrouped data distribution is a method that we are using uses a table. Therefore, once you are arranging the value inside the table, where the each value of the variable along with the associated frequencies, then we can say such table as a group frequency distribution or a grouped data distribution. In here, the same example has considered. Suppose that you are asked to obtain the number of hours attended to the online classes by each student, and the data obtained is mentioned here. Now you can see that the values are 21, 23, 24, 24, 26, 27, 27, 28, 30, and 30. Altogether, we are having this set of data, and now what we can do is we can show this data using the ungrouped data distribution. Ungrouped data distribution means for the value we are not having an interval, or we are not grouping these values. We are considering the single value, and thereafter we will obtain their associated frequencies. Therefore, now if here the data is in the ascending order, but for the easiness, of these arrangements, what we can do is, first we can rearrange the data in the ascending order. It will be make our calculation easy. Therefore, we can see that the smallest value we are having is 21 and the largest value we are having is 30. Therefore, starting from 21, I will write these numbers since we are not having any decimal values, and we are having these values from 21 to 30, having the increment as 1. That is how I am taking the values for this X column. Here this value is supposed to be our variable, and this X is supposed to be the number of hours attend to the online classes. Therefore, it is actually our variable, and it can be named as X, and this frequency can be denoted using the lowercase letter f. And these are the general notations we are using for the value or the variable. We can use several other letters, but generally for to denote the frequency, we are using the lowercase letter f. Now we can see that the minimum value is 21 and maximum is 30. Therefore, I'm having the increment as 1. And now I can allocate the frequencies. We can see that 21 appears for one time, and therefore 1 is written here, but you cannot see any value as 22. Therefore, its frequency is 0. Then 23 appears one time, but once you consider about 24, 24 has appeared for 2 times. Therefore, we have to say that 24's the frequency of 24 is 2. That is why we are taking this value as 2. Likewise, we can have that 24 is not here, therefore the value here is 0. In a similar manner, we can obtain it for the value 30 by completing all the other rows as well. Therefore, this is what we are getting as the ungrouped frequency distribution. For the values or for the numerical values that we are having, we can construct the ungrouped frequency distributions. But sometimes with the if we are having our experiments or having our studies or the surveys in the large scale, we may get the large number of values as well as them in the very large range as well. Therefore, in such situations, we may not able to use these ungrouped frequency distributions. Therefore, to overcome this the lengthiness of the table we are getting, what we are going to do is we are going to construct, or we are going to introduce another technique called the group frequency distribution. Therefore, then we will move for that. And if you see about this group data distribution, this will also a tabular arrangement, but the data or the values we are taking for the variable is shown as the classes. Therefore, we will have it as the classes, and these classes which are together with the corresponding class frequencies. It is because if we are having a lengthy table for this ungrouped frequency distribution, this will not make easier for having an idea regarding the data set we are having. Therefore, in such situations, what we can do is we can replace this ungrouped frequency distribution using the group data or group frequency distribution. Therefore, in the ungrouped frequency distribution, we had the single values, but here what we are going to do is we are making, or we are having the classes for the values for the variable, and their corresponding class frequencies will be also included here. Suppose that we'll first take the example related with group data distribution, but prior to that, I will say why we can use this group data distribution here. Suppose that you have asked about the weight of the students, and you can see that this is the data set we have obtained. Therefore, here we can see that we are having the large number of values, but anyhow, I have rearranged this data set, and I have just make it in the ascending order. But here, if you are having the large set of values, here now you can see that the smallest value is 60, the largest value is 74. Therefore, you are having somewhat a lengthy table if you are using the ungrouped frequency distribution. It is because you have to start it from 60, then you have to do it for 61, 62, 63, 64, 65. 66. Likewise here it is 70, 71, 72, 73, and 74. If you are using a table in this form, it will be much more lengthier and it will not be easy for the understanding or having an idea regarding the data we have collected. Therefore, in such situations, what we can do is, instead of having this ungrouped data distribution, we can shorten our table by making the classes for this variable. Therefore, what we can do is, we are grouping a set of values into one class and then we are having their associated frequency. Here I have taken the classes as 60 to 62, 63 to 65, 66 to 68, 69 to 71, 72 to 74. Therefore, these are the classes I have constructed, and then for each class, the number of students were associated. Now you can see that for the class of 60 to 62, values starting from 60 to 62, we are having the set of values. Now you can see that there are 5 values in the first class. Therefore, we can say that frequency of the class starting from 60 and ending by 62 is 5. Likewise, for the next class, it is 63 to 65, starting from here and it goes up to 65. If you have the count for this class, you can get it as 80. Likewise, the classes have obtained, and then this is an example for the group frequency distribution. But in the after discussing about some terminology used in this frequency distribution, I will discuss how to obtain a group frequency distribution in this form. Here I have just used this as an example only. The obtaining of this group frequency distribution will be also discussed in the latter part of this session. Okay, now you can see that if you are using an ungrouped data distribution for a set of data like this, you will get a very lengthy, what we can say it as very lengthy ungrouped frequency distribution or lengthy table here. Simply we can say it as a lengthy table. Therefore, using the concept what we are calling as the group frequency distribution, we can shorten the table and we can have an idea regarding the data we are having as well. In here, as soon as you see this value, this is the largest value. You can say that the majority of the students are in the range of 66 to 68 kilograms. Therefore, you can simply have an idea based on this group frequency distribution. And now we will move for the discussion of the terminology used in this frequency distribution. The first thing is the class interval. The class interval here, if I am explaining it using this example, here we'll take this the class interval. It is 60 to 62 in the above table is called as the class interval. Therefore, the interval that we are interested in will be considered as the class interval. And here this is the first class interval we are having as 60 to 62. The next class interval is 63 to 65. Then third class interval is 66 to 68. Then 69 to 71 is the fourth class interval. And the last class interval we are having is 72 to 74. The easiest way of identifying the class interval is, generally we can, okay, prior to start that, I will say about these two as well. Here we can see that for a class interval, you will have two values. This will be say as the lower class interval or the lower value for the class interval, and this can be said as the upper value or the upper bound of this class interval. Therefore, Generally, we can identify this lower as the upper bound for the class interval, but it is not a hard and fast rule, and it is necessary to have this both. One of these may be enough to have it as a class. It is because there is a concept called the open-ended class. Therefore, one of these either lower or either upper, maybe in some classes, but normally we can see that there is a lower bound as well as the upper bound in the classes we are considering. When we are consider about the class interval, generally the upper bound of the prevailing class will be differ from the lower bound of the or the, if you are considering this as the if this as the currently we are in this class, suppose that the lower bound of this class will be differ from the upper bound of the preceding class. Therefore, this is a way that we can easily identify the class limits. Okay, then the class intervals, then the class limits are said to be the end numbers in the each class interval. Therefore, this is the class interval, and this can be considered as the class in limits can be considered as the opening number and the ending number of the class. Therefore, here we can see that these class 2 limits are not similar. That is why we can say such as an class interval. Therefore, this can be considered as the set of lower class limits we are having, and this set of values are said to be the upper class limits we are having. Therefore, if you are considering the class interval 60 to 62, then we can say that this is the lower class limit, and this can be considered as the upper class limit, lower class limit and the upper class limit. And then we can have another concept called the open class interval. For the open class interval, it has either upper limit or lower limit. That is why I say that either no upper limit or no lower class limit for the open class intervals. As an example, if you are considering another class in here it is 75 years and over, or we can simply say that more than 75, or else here we can say that 75 is the lower value of this class, and it can goes up to the infinity or the maximum weight we can have for a human being. Therefore, there is no any um, what we can say as the upper class limit for a class like this. That is why we are saying it as the open class interval. Here also we can say it is the less than 60. If you are considering it as less than 60, it says that the maximum we are having is 60, and we can go below a value which is any value for this in this lower side. That is why we can say again it as an open class interval. Therefore, if it is an open class interval, we can see either upper limit or is there or the lower limit is there. Then we will move for the class boundaries. The class boundaries is the maximum value that we can consider for the class that we are assigning. Therefore, in generally, class boundaries and class intervals are two different terms. Generally, we are calculating these class boundaries by obtaining the upper limit of one class with the lower class limit of the next higher class and dividing it by 2. If I explain it simply in this way, suppose that these are the classes we are having: 63, 65, 66, 68, 69, 71, 72, and 74. If I am taking this class interval, I will take this class interval for the explanation of the class boundary. Now you can see that when you are calculating the lower boundary, this class starts for 66, but the previous class has end up with 65. Therefore, we have to calculate a common value for these two classes. Therefore, What we can do is we are adding 65 with 66 and divide it by 2. That is why we are getting 65.5 as the lower boundary. And to calculate the upper boundary, what we can do is we can consider the upper boundary of the prevailing class with the lower boundary of the next higher class. Therefore, 68 plus 69 divided by 2 gives the next value, it is 68.5. Therefore, we can say it as the 68.5. In the example, I will explain of obtaining the values. Therefore, once you obtain the class boundaries, then you will get it as 59.5 here, 62.5, then 62.5 to 65.5, then 68.5 to 71.5, 71.5 to 74.5. Therefore, these are said to be the class boundaries, and these are said to be the what we are saying as the class intervals or the class limits. Here we can say as the class limits, and these are the class boundaries. Now you can see that the ending class boundary will be similar as the opening of the next higher class boundary. But here we had two different values, but once you calculate the class boundaries, we can have it for the similar values for ending value of a preceding class and the starting value of the next class. And the next important term is the size or the width of a class. Here we can simply taking the difference between the lower and the upper boundaries. We can compute the width of a class, or we are saying it as the size of a class. To obtain the size or the width of a class, what we have to do is we have to take the difference between the lower boundary and the upper boundary. In simply, if you are considering this example here, we can say that the difference is 3 here, and therefore the width of this class is 3. If you are considering this class, now you can see that the difference can be taken by 68.5 minus 65.5. Therefore, again, we are getting the value as 3. Therefore, this is the width of the next class as well. Now we'll see in here you have see an example related to the group frequency distribution, and now we will see how we can construct these group frequency distributions. Okay, when you are going to construct the group frequency or group data distributions, we have to follow this set of instructions or the set of steps. First, what we have to do is we have to sort the data in the ascending order. Generally, we are having the raw data. We are having the raw data. The raw data in the sense we are not having them in a ordered manner. Therefore, we can see it we cannot see it in the ascending order or the descending order. Therefore, first thing what we have to do is we have to sort this data in the ascending order. Then we have to calculate the range using this equation. We can find out the range. To calculate the range, what we can do is we can subtract the minimum value of the data by the maximum value of the data set. Therefore, we have to calculate the range for this data set, and then thereafter what we have to do is we have to select the number of classes. Actually, this will be an arbitrary value we are taking, but this value is generally in between 5 and 15. This value or the number of classes are actually determined based on the value that we are getting for a range. Suppose that if you are getting a small range, suppose that if you are having the range as 20 to 25, then we can say there is no point of having suppose that value of the range is 20. Therefore, in a situation like this, it is no point of having the 15 classes. It is because you can see that range is 20. Therefore, in a situation like this, we can have the value as 5. Or else if you are having the range as 60, in this situation, or suppose that somewhat a large value, Suppose that if you are having the range as 150, in a range of 150, it is no point of having the 5 classes. Therefore, in such situations, we can have it for 15 classes. It is because we are using these group frequency distributions to have an idea regarding the data set. Therefore, the maximum we are using it for 15, but any value in between 5 and 15 can be used. Therefore, if you are having 60, then a person may say that okay, I will divide this into 12 classes. If you are having large set of values, then we can have it for 12. Or else if you are having even though we are having the range as a large value, but you may say that you may use 5 classes. It is because you are having a small set of data. Therefore, this as an arbitrary value, you can determine it based on the range that you are obtained by taking the difference between the maximum value and the minimum value. After taking or after setting the number of classes, then you have to select the class interval. And in the next page, actually, these equations are included, and I will explain it using an example. And thereafter, using the class, first we have to compute the class interval using what we are saying as the class width, and then we have to determine the class boundaries or the class limits. And thereafter, this is an optional step we are using, computing of class midpoints. But generally, we are doing this. It is because this will be much more helpful when you are going for the graphing techniques. When we are using or when we are going for the graphing purposes based on the group data distribution, computing of class midpoints will be much more helpful. But it is not a compulsory step that you have to follow. But even though it is an optional step, it will be really helpful when you are going for the construction, the graphical or using the graphical representation for this group data distribution. And thereafter, we can have the count or we can have the frequency for this class of observations, and then we have to assign for each classes that we have identified. Therefore, these are the 7 steps we need to follow to construct a group frequency or group data distribution. Now we will move for an example related to this obtaining this group data distribution. Here you can see that this is the example I have taken, that Alex has measured the length of leaves of an oak tree, and it has recorded to the nearest centimeter, and you are asked to construct a appropriate group frequency distribution for the provided data. Now, if you suppose to construct or simply consider about without constructing, or if it is not given that you to construct this group frequency distribution, you may suppose that okay, I will construct the ungrouped frequency distribution if it is not given here. But when you are calculating or when you are observing the minimum and the maximum, that you can see is minimum is 1 and the maximum you can see is 80. Therefore, you have to write it for 1, 2, 3, 4, likewise up to 80. Therefore, altogether 18 rows will be there. Therefore, definitely you can see that ungrouped distribution is not appropriate for a set of values like this. Therefore, what we can do is it is actually ungrouped. Okay, now what we can do is instead of constructing this, we have to definitely now go for a group frequency distribution. Therefore, according to the first step, it is mentioned, we have to sort the data in the ascending order. First, I have sorted the data in the ascending order. All these values are written in the ascending order, and this is the set of data obtaining by the rearranging it in the ascending order. Therefore, now we can easily see that the minimum value is 1 and the maximum value is 80. Therefore, as the second step, what we can do is we can calculate the range for this set of data. To calculate the range for the data, we can take the difference of the difference between the maximum and the minimum value. Here we can see that the maximum value is 18 and the minimum value is 1. Therefore, we can see the range for this data set is equal to 17. Therefore, we can see that range is equal to 17. Since this is somewhat a small value compared to the values we are obtaining, therefore, I will say that I will limit it for 5 classes. Therefore, we'll assume that we need 5 groups. So rather than saying it as we can say it as the 5 classes. Suppose that we are obtaining 5 classes, and using the range and the number of classes, we can compute the class interval or the class width. Therefore, here this is the third step. We are assuming the number of classes based on the range we have done in, and thereafter we can compute the class interval, or we can say simply it is the width of the class. Width of the class can be obtained by taking the ratio between the range and the number of classes. Here we can see that the range is 17, and here we are having 5 classes. Therefore, we can take the range is equal to the width is equal to 3.4. Since we are getting a decimal value, always we are trying to keep it as a whole number. Therefore, always what we have to do is we have to round up this value. We have to always round up the value. No, even though we are having it is 3.4 is less than 3.5. Generally, we are saying that this is equal to 3, and if we are having value is 3.6, then here we will take it as 4, hmm, for to a whole number. But in this situation, when we are calculating the width, it says that 3.4 is the minimally it should have 3. Therefore, always we have to go for the upper way. That is why we can round off this value to 4 instead of rounding it to 3. We have to take it for the always we have to go for the upper direction. Therefore, we have to take this as round up value is equal to 4. Then we can construct the class interval and all the other things. Here I will start it from 1, since it is the minimum value we are having, or else if you need, you can start it from 0. It is no point, no worries or no any wrong, nothing any wrong in the starting value of this. It is because it should be definitely less than or equal to the minimum value of the data set. If you need, you can start from 0, but here since this is the starting value, I will start it from 1. Now we can see that the class interval is 4. Therefore, we have to compute 4 units including 1. That is why we are getting the upper limit as 4. It is because we have to associate or include 4 units. It is because with these 4, then we can say that 4 units means 1 has to be included there, then 1, 2, 3 and 4. That is why we can say the first class is 1 to 4. Similar manner, we will start it from the next value. It is 5, then 5, 6, 7 and 8. It would be the next class. That is why we are taking the second class as 5 to 8. Then next class is 9, 10, 11 and 12. Then we can say it as 9 to 12. Then fourth class is 13, 14, 15 and 16. Starts from 13 and ends from 16. Likewise, next class is starting from 70 and ends up 20. Therefore, this is the number of units that we are assigning for each class. That is why we are taking 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we are taking the value as 1 to 4. Then this is the fifth step. We are saying it is the class interval, defining class interval based on the width. Actually, it is combined here. I will take this as the this is combined, calculating width and obtaining the class interval, and thereafter we can take the class boundaries. When we are constructing the class boundaries, what we have to do is we are not going to calculate the lower class boundary of this class initially. We are not going, we are just forgetting about this value. Therefore, we'll keep this value as a space, and then we'll keep the final value as a space. We are not going to calculate all these initially. What we can do is we can start from this value. To calculate the upper boundary of the first class interval, you can use the upper class limit of the prevailing class, and then we have to use the lower class limit of the next higher class. Therefore, this value can be taken by adding these two numbers, 4 and 5 divided by 2 equals to 4.5. Therefore, the upper boundary of this class would be 4.5, and the lower boundary of the next higher class should be always equal to, or it should be same. Therefore, this is also equal to 4.5. Then to calculate the next this boundary, what we can do is we can select this value 8 and then 9, then 8 plus 9 divided by 2 equals to 8.5. That is how we are getting this value as 8.5. Then we can take this as the next the class boundary 8.5 and 8.5. Likewise, we can do the remainings as well. But even though you have calculated this first class boundary, by adding the class width for this boundary, you can always construct the next class boundary. It is because this is the first class boundary you have obtained, and it would be similar to the lower class boundary of the next higher class. Then upper class boundary can be obtained by adding 4. It is the class width to this lower boundary. Therefore, 4.5 plus 4 equals to 8.5. Since this is the upper boundary, it would be same as the lower boundary for the next class. Then we have to rewrite the same value here. Then adding 4 gives us the upper boundary of this class as the 12.5. Then it would be similar to the lower boundary of the next higher class. Then adding 4 gives this value as 16.5. It is the upper boundary. Then it would be equal to the lower boundary of the next class. Using this technique, now you can easily obtain what we can say it as, we can obtain the upper boundary of this class. Therefore, what we can simply do is we can add for our class width to the lower boundary. That is why we are getting 20.5. This is how we are taking the upper boundary of the last class, and then we have to follow a method to calculate the lower boundary of the initial class as well, or the starting class. To calculate the lower boundary, what you can do is you can subtract. Here we have uh, added 4. Here what we can do is we can subtract 4 from the upper boundary. That is how we are getting zero point 0.5 as the lower boundary of the starting class. Now you can see that using the class boundaries, you can see that taking the difference, you have obtained the class interval, but if you are class width, but if you are subtracting the class interval, it is 4 minus 1 is equal to 3. Then you have to add 1 to take this class width. Here also it is 12 minus 9, it is 3 plus 1 give the class width. Therefore, if you are obtaining the class width based on the class limits, you have to add 1 to the difference. But if you are using the class boundaries, then you can directly get the class width. Then we can calculate the class midpoints. To calculate the class midpoint, what we have to do is you have to add the lower boundary with upper boundary and divide it by 2. Therefore, we can get it as this value is 0.5 plus 4.5 divided by 2 equals 2.5. Therefore, this would be the class midpoint. Now, this is the fifth step. And then this is the sixth step, but it is an optional. It is because we are using this step if you are going for the graphical techniques. Then the next class midpoint can be obtained by adding these two values and dividing by 2. 4.5 plus 8.5 divided by 2 equals 6.5. Similar way, for the last class interval, it is 16.5 plus 20.5 divided by 2 equals to 18.5. Now we have construct the class midpoints, and then we can compute the frequencies for each class. When we are computing the frequency, rather than using the class interval, use the class boundaries to identify the frequencies. It is because the class boundary suggests that the maximum and the minimum value that we can take for the defined class, but in the class interval or we are having the limits only. Therefore, based on the class boundaries, if you are allocating the values here, you can see that from 0.5 to 4.5, 4.5 in the sense we are having it somewhat here. It is because now this is in the rearranged data set, therefore starting value is 0.5. Then it would be less than 1. Therefore, here we can see that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Therefore, frequency equals to 5. Now, next starting value is 4.5 and it goes up to 8.5. 8.5 in the sense, here we can see that this is the set of values we can take. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That is how we are getting the value 8 here. Similar manner, we can now go for the last set of values. It is from 16.5. 16.5 in the sense it is somewhat here, and it goes up to 20.5. 16.5 up to 20.5. Therefore, we can see that altogether 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 values are included. That is why we are getting 5 here. Therefore, these are the frequencies we are having for the class boundaries, and this is how we are constructing the group data distribution. Initially, in this example, I have just shown you a group data distribution or group frequency distribution, but here I have in detail discussed how to obtain a group frequency distribution. Therefore, if I have a quick go through the step, sort the data in ascending order, calculate the range using the maximum minus minimum, then define the number of classes based on the range, then divide in the range by number of classes, define the class width, and if you are getting a decimal value, always you have to round it up. Then compute the class intervals, then compute the class boundaries, and using the class boundaries compute the class midpoints, and then assign the associated frequencies for each class. This can be done easily using the class boundaries. And now we will move for the some other things related, or the some other distributions related with this frequency distribution. Here we can construct the next type of distribution is the relative frequency distribution and the percentage distribution. Here it would be same, or the things that we have discussed up to obtaining class interval, and the frequency will be same as previous. Up to obtaining the frequencies, it means that you need to follow the procedures that we have discussed at this point. Therefore, once you are having frequencies, suppose that you have finalized the table and now you are having the class interval along with the frequencies, then you can go for having this extension for the group data distribution. Therefore, the next way that we can have it for the frequency distribution is the relative frequency. To calculate the relative frequency, what we can do is this can be obtained by frequency of the class divided by the total uh, total frequency. Therefore, here we can see that the frequency of this class is 5 and it has to be divided by 30. Then this value is the frequency for next class is 8. it has to be divided by 38. It is the relative frequency for the class mentioning at 5 to 8. For the class mentioning from 9 to 12, it can be taken the relative frequency as frequency is 11. It has to be divided by 38. That is how we are getting 11 divided by 38. Generally, we can keep it as a fraction, and if you are getting the exactly decimals, then we can solve that as well. But here, since we are having somewhat large number of decimals, I have kept this as fractions. Once you calculate the relative frequency, the total of the relative frequency should be always equal to 1. This has to be equal to 1 always. Therefore, the summation of the relative frequency is always equal to 1. And then we can calculate the percentage values. Therefore, the percentage can be simply by taking the multiplications. Here the percentages has to be corrected. The percentage can be taken as, now the relative frequency is multiplied with 100%. Therefore, this can be taken as 38 over 5 multiplied with 100%. Therefore, you can perform the calculation. Therefore, once you have this calculation, it is 5 divided by 38 multiplied with 100. This gives the value as 13.16. Here the percentage is 13.16. Therefore, similar manner, here we can take it as 8 divided by 38 multiplied with 100%. Then you will get this value as 8 divided by 38 multiplied into 100%. You will get this value as 21.05. Likewise, you can compute all these values, and if you have the summation for the percentage, this should be equal to 100%. Therefore, this is how we are calculating the relative frequency distribution and the this percentage values for the frequency distribution. And then we will move for the obtaining the cumulative distribution, cumulative frequency distributions. Okay, prior to that, I forgot to discuss this part. The percentage, in the sense, we can say that 13.16% of the tree leaves are in the range of 1 to 4 centimeters. And again, we can interpret that 21.05% of the oak tree leaves are in the length of 5 to 8 centimeters. Likewise, for the last one, we can say again that again we'll get this value as 13.16%. Therefore, again we can say that another 13.16% of leaves will be in the range of 17 to 20 centimeters. Therefore, in this way, we can compute the percentage values. Therefore, now we will move for the next part. It is the obtaining the cumulative frequency distribution. When we are obtaining the cumulative frequency distributions, generally we may focus this with the two categories. First one is the less than cumulative frequency distribution, and the next one is the more than cumulative frequency distribution. Less than distribution and the more than cumulative frequency distribution. Therefore, first what we can do is we can construct the table up to obtaining the frequencies, and then we can obtain the less than or more than cumulative frequency distribution. Now, first I will discuss about obtaining less than cumulative frequency. To obtain the less than cumulative frequency, what we can do is we can write the first value as it is. Then to obtain the next value, what we have to do is we have to add this to the frequency in the next class. Then it says that 5 plus 8 equals to 30. Then 13 is added to 11. Then we can say that 13 plus 11 equals to 24. Likewise, we can take the remainings. 24 plus 9 gives the 33, and this plus 5, 33 plus 5 gives the value as 30. Therefore, this is how we are obtaining the less than cumulative frequency. If you interpret this resource, this less than cumulative frequency, when you are interpreting it, it has to be use the upper class limit for the interpretation. Therefore, we can say that there are 5 leaves which are less than 4 centimeters. Then the 13 in the sense, we can say that there are 13 leaves which are below to value 8. It includes these 5 as well. 5 plus 8 gives the value as 13. Therefore, this is how we are interpreting it. Therefore, if you take this 5, we can say that there are 5 leaves which are less than or equal to 4 centimeters. Then, if you consider 13, we can say that there are 13 leaves which are less than or equal to 8 centimeters. Then, if you consider this 33, if you consider 33 in the sense, we can say that there are 33 leaves which are less than or equal to 16 centimeters. Likewise, we can interpret the results. If you consider about this, the final value as 38, this can be taken as there are 38 leaves which are less than or equal to 20 centimeters. Therefore, this is how we are constructing the less than frequency, less than cumulative frequency, and interpreting the values using it. And then we will consider about the more than cumulative frequency. To construct the more than cumulative frequency, what we can do is we can start it from the end. For the calculation of less than cumulative frequency, we have started it from the top, and to calculate the more than cumulative frequency, we have to start it from the bottom. Therefore, when we are constructing, okay, I will just have now I have this removed it. Okay, but it's not nice. Therefore, I will take it. Now it is easy for explanation. Okay, now if I take about the more than cumulative frequency, I'm telling you that we have to start it from the bottom. Therefore, the bottom value directly goes here. It is 5. Then this value is added to 9. Now we can take that we are adding these two values. Then this leaves the value as 14. That is why we are getting this as the 5 plus 9. Then here we can see that value is 14. Then it is added to 11. Therefore, this value can be obtained as 14 plus 11. Then 25 is here. It has to be added to 8. Then we can take it as 25 plus 8. It is this 33. Then here we can say it is 33 added to this 5. Then we can say it is the 33 plus 5 equals to 30. And when we are interpreting this more than cumulative frequency, we have to use the lower class limit or the lower class boundary. Always to interpret using the more than cumulative, we have to use the lower class limit or lower class boundary to interpret the less than cumulative. For the less than cumulative frequency, we are using the upper limit or the upper boundary. For the more than cumulative frequency, To interpret it, we are using the lower limit or the lower boundary value. Therefore, here if you are considering about this, since we are having more than, we can say that there are 38 leaves or 38 items which are more than or equal to 1 centimeter. Here this 33 in the sense, 33 means there are 33 leaves which are more than or equal to 5 centimeter length. Then we can say that this 14 in the sense there are 14 leaves which are greater than or equal to 13 centimeters, and 5 in the sense there are 5 leaves which are greater than or equal to 17 centimeters. Therefore, this is how we are interpreting and obtain the more than cumulative frequencies. Okay. Now today in this session we have discussed about the tabulating methods that we can use for the numerical data, and this is all what I need to discuss for this session, and thank you all for participating.